what they used to say about spying. Americans play poker, Russians play chess.
Mm,
Which one do you want to do? Which
right.
what aspect of those activities seems to be well matched to the risks that the character is undertaking in these actions?
Right.
Um,
So two points or two things I want to bring up. One, kind of the color I've imagined. I'm not sure this is what I want to do, but when I imagine the color, I imagine like, so when you engage in, when you make war, when you make mayhem or madness, I'm kind of imagining like the more and more battle weary creatures, like, by the end, one has lost his hand, one has lost her
right,
eyes, has been plucked out, and like they've undergone physical duress, like they're
right,
and potentially other types of uh, pain and injury too. But they have been through the ringer,
right,
and because they've chosen to fight so much. But and so I'm imagining that the narrator can then kind of twist the knife later and say in later conflicts, well, that consequence matters now. You
oh yeah, well,
lost
why
that
would,
eye.
of course we do,
Yeah.
yeah. So I get that. So I mean, that's along those lines. But how does that come in? How does that come in? Mechanically. Let me give you a contrast, right? An easy contrast. I'm going to roll to, hurt that guy,
Mhm.
or hurt them in order to get that crate of chemicals away from them. So here's one system. I roll, and my total. I'm making this up. My total tells me whether I did it or not.
Yeah.
My you know I don't know. Again, I'm just making shit up right now. Um, my lowest die, perhaps,
Mhm.
tells me just how much heinous, hit have I done.
Right.
So I mean, if I roll all high dice, then obviously I've done some sort of heinous amount of damage, probably more than I want. You could have
Yeah.
like a little gradation where 5 and 6 are really nasty. So,
Yeah.
but then you look at the high die, and that'll tell me, I go over to the table, and maybe there's a roll, right? It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you roll again, right? Going across from where
Mhm.
you start. My high die is a 5, so I go to the table, I find the 5 out of the 6, and then I roll another die, and then I go across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so there's
Mhm.
like 36 results on that table, and that'll tell me what hideous battle scar I took,
Right.
right? So that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
You can call it the Rollmaster method.
Right.
Um, and then there's another way, which you could say something along the lines of, uh, I choose the battle scar that I'll take, if I can succeed. You basically have some metric, something you roll, and the question is whether, you know, if you roll for shit, then you can increase it by the amount of battle scar that you're willing to take,
Mhm.
right? So, if you roll really well, that's great. You nailed it. But if you roll badly, you can still do it, but only if you fill up the gap with some dreadful thing that happens to you. And,
Right.
the amount maybe matters, right?
Interesting.
So you see the difference between the two,
Yeah.
right? The one you're finding out what the table tells you, the other one you're choosing to put in your risk, and neither one is inherently better or worse than the other. The question is which one, or which one set of that logic, and of course that's only two tiny, very cheap ass examples that I
Right.
just made up. The question is which of those two, along with all the other 22 that we could do, make up if we just kept going, which of those seems to go well with what you feel you would want to do with this character.
Yeah.
And how much is the second one sounds so indie and so creative and so creatively free, and not constrained by those terrible dice and those terrible tables, right? Yeah, well, it's also kind of annoying and exhausting after you do it for the 5th time.
Right.
So, do you see what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah.
a difficult, question of choosing it on the basis of what's a better or worse mechanic, but it's an easy question if you choose it on the basis of saying, "Ooh, I want to do that."
Mhm.
Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it actually reminds me of something that I've been thinking about for the resolution system without going too deep into it. I've been thinking about bounce a lot since we last spoke, and
Right.
I kind of feel with this game it would be interesting if there was some way for the player in the moment. I would prefer it to be elegant rather than like super oblique, but some way for the player to basically say like, I'm going to have uh, like to be able to choose between like the bell curve or the bounce. You know what I mean? Like but
Right,
risk
right,
something and
right,
the bounce. Like say I'm willing to have something potentially go really bad for this like Hail Mary
right,
bouncy option.
right. There's a couple of interesting things, therefore. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. I mean, you could have a nice, really reliable outcome. As you say, the obvious would be to have one of these things where, uh, well, it's kind of the classic, right? Roll. I'll do a really, really easy example. We're going to take 5d6, and I'm going to roll. And what I'm going to do is remove, like, the, I don't know if I'm doing the math right on this, but if I remove the highest and the lowest,
Mm-hmm.
right, then I'm looking at, on the average, I think my results are going to be really slammed toward the middle, and so
Yeah,
ultimately my 3d6 results are going to be a much more tall and narrow curve, right?
yeah,
So say you've got something like that,
yeah,
and so to a large extent, you might as well not really be rolling very much.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so you've got that, but then on the other hands, um, you could say, you have a choice to, I don't know, I'm making shit up now. Um, leave
Roll a
in,
d20.
I don't know, I don't want to do something like, roll a d20 and, see what happens. I'm thinking more in terms of like working off that original roll. Here I just did it again. I removed the highest, I removed the lowest. Well, what if I say, well, I'm going to leave in the highest, but now I have to, I got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the value is actually what you pay. So that's pretty bouncy right there.
Yeah,
And the cool thing about that is that the consequences on based on one die, so it really is, a linear thing. It's probably not a one or a two because it's the highest one, but it's still, it's you don't know what that value is when you first roll. You look
right.
at it and you say, "Wow, I don't want a three. I already have a three. If I have a second three, that's super suckage, right? To do the same number again, right?
Yeah,
So you're like, I got a three. It's my highest die. I don't want a three. I already have a three. If I take that three, I'm really fucked. But on the other hand, that was a really shitty roll, and having a three on there changes everything. I've got that bumped me 3 points, up
right.
on my total. So it's a little bit more that at least mathematically matches a little bit about what you said,
Yeah,
right? So you have a nice solid kind of GURPSy or fudgy reliable roll, but when you
yeah,
introduce that aspect to it, I mean there's a certain troll babe element too. You basically get to keep rolling into what's going on as long as you assume more and more risk for it.
right.
Which is a different mechanic, but it has some of the same aspects. Um, is that helping or making any sense? Thinking about it, these
Yeah.
things, yeah. Um, Again, the only thing I can think of and what I do
Mm-hmm.
goes one of two ways. Either I know from the start the aesthetic of the experience of a given mechanic has captured my heart.
Yeah.
And Slay With Me was like that. I mean, people are like, where did you come up with that? How did you factor in that weird like dice stacking shit? And it's so strange too. I mean, why do you even bother stacking them? What is
Yeah.
that? And the fact is that it's not even Jenga, right? It's not like if they fall by accident, then something happens, right? That's not even in there. So what the hell?
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? The whole experience of two people sitting there in each other's proximity, building a physical little tower and looking at each other, I liked it.
Yeah.
I just liked it. I want to do that. And that's one way it happens, is you're just you get a notion.
Yeah.
And even if it's a ripoff, that counts. I'm not saying that doesn't count, even if it's a ripoff. But you're still in
Yeah.
love with that. You can feel yourself doing that while you imagine the stuff you imagine for this game.
Right.
And it works. You're like, it's got to be that I've got to have, that role. That's one way to do it. And the other way is the way that we just did it, where you just end up spitballing the hell out of stuff that you know to do. And it's really brainstorming. I mean, you're just free to do it. And it's liberating in many ways because you're not under pressure to get the right answer anytime soon.
Yeah.
And you just kind of, keep cycling through. Well, I always did like roll. You can say to yourself, I always did like roll and keep. Never mind everything else about that game, but I sure did like roll and keep.
Mm.
And you're thinking about that. Or maybe you played. I mean, how many people have never played Everway again, or played Everway and then stopped and haven't played it for 20 years, but they just love that fortune deck. They know that could fucking rock, right?
Yeah.
They just know it. I do.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. I have no desire to play Everway again, but that fortune
Mm.
deck, I'd pull that out and use that as a resolution mechanic any day. Right.
Yeah.
So so it doesn't matter if it's something that and are just emulating. It doesn't matter if you're just still kind of spitballing across a million of them. For the card mechanics for Shahida and for Spiona, I actually was working off of very, very simple card games that are so simple that they're only played for casual fun. They're not even famous card games.
Yeah.
And they're playable, but they're really not all that challenging. And yet there are points of resolution. There are ways in which resolution occurs, and you can do this or you can't do that with a card. And I just sort of was, flipping through these and musing, does this relate to actions? Does this relate to announcements? Does this relate to consequences?
Mm.
And the versions that I used in the games are not just transporting those card games in. They
Right.
are a resolution mechanic now, and there are rules of the original that I threw out and things that I put in, but that's how I got there. Because I liked the feel and the ease of people playing these very simple kinds of card games with each other.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
Yeah. I've been thinking
that.
I've been thinking about gambling games with this game.
Mm-hmm. So does that help a little bit? I mean, what I really want to do is kind of free you up, right? It's okay to grab something that ultimately you don't really have any good reason except that you knew it was fun or it feels fun to you, thinking about it. And that's okay. It's also perfectly okay to brainstorm across the things you know or are researching, but again, not with pressure.
Yeah.
And that I think is a big deal, actually. That it's okay to try one out and play, and it's not even baked yet, and you just tell, like we've talked about before, just tell the playtesters, look, I know it's not going to work. I know this is not in, you got to be the kind of playtester that's just going to do it and let me watch. I'm not trying to impress you with this.
Right.
So does how are those for? I'm trying to be as more concrete than our previous discussions.
Yeah, I think that's useful. I was wondering if I'm pretty task oriented and pretty homework oriented. I was wondering if you would have some advice on some things I could do to like move forward to our next session, whenever that might be. And
Yeah, I do. I think that the main one would probably be to find like the crunchiest, the most nuanced and fine grained, brutal um, resolution system that you know of, and even I mean I know it's probably going to be about combat, but you
Mhm.
know as well as I do that most resolution systems can be adapted into other conflicts too.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose, and I don't want to make you run out and get a game you don't have, but if I had to choose, I would probably pick Pendragon.
Mhm.
And I don't mean the traits and passions and stuff. I would say let the passions go into play as bonuses. Just take them into account. But don't worry about like the passion system and how you get them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, learn the combat system. Actually do it.
Mhm.
Run it with someone if you've got it. If you have a friend.
Yeah.
Actually, that one is a good one, and also for that purpose, because you really do get like physical consequences of physical actions.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to think of a couple of others. Give me a second.
Even if you were had to email me later
Yeah, I
with
might, but
the
I've got so many games on this. I mean, this is only one of my game shelves right there, right?
yeah.
There's only one of them, and there's 1,000 titles on there, and I'm looking across them and thinking about the ones with somewhat more fine grained stuff that aren't just roll a hit with this skill value and wait your turn and see how the damage does against the armor, right? I'm trying to stay away from that. I'm trying to get
Yeah.
into ones where the actual doing of things shows you how those things work out.
Right.
So, of those, oh my god, I've got some obscure games in there.
Mhm.
Um, I may have to. I'm seeing too many. Is the problem? I'm kind of seeing, too many. So let me
Okay.
think about a few. But the running a Pendragon combat might just be sort of the reason I'm saying that is you'll either know that that's exactly not what you want to do. You want dice to
Yeah.
do different things. You want other mechanics to do different things, or you say, it's just right for what that is. So what would be just right for what I want?
Right.
But you have sort of a grounding experience to for your minds to work on.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be the top choice. I'll come up with a few others.
Okay. Cool.
Excellent, man.
All right.
Take care.